This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non-toxic, medical-grade ingredients.
We are in the thick of summer right now, and you know what that means for me? I am spending every possible minute I can on the weekend paddleboarding. I absolutely love it. But last weekend was a doozy. I had an accident where I ran into some rocks on the side of the river. Thank God nothing was broken, but I did get pretty scraped up, which is not good when you're on a river for a few hours with nowhere else to go. Cuts like that can get hella infected really quickly. But luckily, it wasn't a problem for me because I was carrying my active skin repair in my first aid bag. I was able to spray my cuts up and finish our river run without any pain or worry over whether or not my cuts were getting infected. Not only that, but active skin repair can be used to treat sunburns and rashes and other types of skin damage, which makes it the perfect thing for me to take on these weekend water trips.
Active Skin Repair utilizes a molecule called hypochlorous acid. When applied to the skin, the molecule works by mimicking the natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support healing.
I love them. They have sprays and hydrogel options, and it comes in regular active skin repair spray, kids and baby formulas, hydrating serums, and hydro sprays too. I love having the light mist spray when I'm out on the water because it dries quickly. But when I'm at home, we use the hydrogel because it's great to have on hand in the car. It works like an ointment. It's perfect. And of course, I love that all of the products are natural and non toxic.
So visit www.activeskinrepair.com to learn more about Active Skin Repair and to get 20% off your order. Use code NOGUILT. That's activeskinrepair.com, and to get 20% off your order, use code NOGUILT.
Because emotions, if we think about even just the word emotions, they're energy in motion, like emotions, right? So it can drain your energy. When we get those spikes of emotion, when we get heightened, we get emotionally hijacked.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by the lovely Bree Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. How are you?
This is our second time recording this because we're recording it in the evening, and both Bree and I have realized that we are not as on top of things in the evening as we are in the morning.
Nope.
Body processes go down.
To make it further, you asked me if I wanted to go to hot yoga after this. I'm like, I don't think
It
I'm
is
gonna
not
have
hot
it in me.
yoga. It is
Oh, I thought it was hot
yin
yoga.
yoga. No, it's like
Oh.
relaxing, wonderful, sleeping, napping yoga.
Oh, restorative yoga. For some reason, I thought I read hot
Restorative.
yoga on there.
No.
I was like, no.
I was like, you're not into restorative yoga, but it's your time for Miguel and you to hang out.
I
So
am into restorative yoga. I am. But yeah, today I am. I have to I try not to fall asleep in restorative yoga, and I think I would today.
Oh, see, I'm all achy and stuff, and I'm like, I need some good stretches. And that's what yin yoga gives me, some really good stretches. But the reason we're doing this in the evening is because our guest is actually in Australia. And so we were like, what time is it there? And she's like, it's 10:35. She's like, what time is it there? We're like, it's 5:44 p.m. the day before you. And she's like, I'm in the future. I'm like, yes.
I know, right? We time traveled in this episode.
Time traveled.
Wah, wah.
Time traveled. So Stephanie Pinto is a multi-award winning emotional intelligence coach and international speaker. She's the author of the best-selling book From Chaos to Connection, founder of Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids, and host of the Emotionally Intelligent Parenting podcast. She supports parents in learning how to manage their emotions, frustrations, and stress so that they are happier, calmer, and connect more deeply with their kids. Stephanie also helps parents to raise emotionally intelligent kids who are self-aware and manage their emotions and behavior. She is passionate about building kids' confidence and resilience, and we hope that you enjoy our interview with Stephanie. You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self-sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. So, Stephanie, I am curious to hear how you first got into this coaching and like teaching about emotionally intelligent parenting.
You know what? It is not a really interesting story. So before I moved into emotional intelligence, I was a pediatric speech pathologist. And so I was used to working with kids and families, obviously on language and communication and things like that. And I just discovered emotional intelligence online. Like I think I came across it because someone I knew was posting about it. And I was like, what is this? Ew, like emotions? Weird. So I don't know. The stuff kept popping up and I was clicking on, you read articles and watch YouTube videos and I was just captured. I was fascinated because I wasn't raised with emotional intelligence and it seemed like this whole new buzzword and this new concept. So yeah, I loved it. And I realized pretty quickly I could weave it into my work, but also the families that I worked with, the parents were obviously struggling with their kids' big emotions because kids are balls of emotion and what comes with that challenging behaviors. And they just had no idea how to manage those and how to get their kids to cooperate and not, shove down their emotions and say, I don't care, just get in the car. Yeah. So I kind of started using in my work and then thought, actually, I really love this. And to be honest, I was burning out as a speech pathologist. So yeah, I made the transition and started working with families and parents in particular. Moved away from working with kids, but working with the parents because I found that that was a lot more powerful and empowering.
It's so interesting. That's me too. I was an elementary school teacher, but before that I was in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles. So I've had a varied career, but elementary school teacher, I stayed home with my son and I founded what is now No Guilt Mom. And then I was making courses for kids, but I realized when we were talking with parents that there could be a bigger impact if parents knew the same skills that I knew and use them with their kids, and it's just gone from there, and it's so like, I didn't think working with parents would be this delightful. As a teacher, like, we were kind of taught to be scared of the parents, honestly. Honestly, we were, but working with parents has been the most amazing thing because you see, like, the relationships with kids just grow from there.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. Now you said, like, you weren't raised that way. I was raised in, like, the grounding household and, like, my parents would get mad and everything. Like, what was your childhood like?
Mm. So my experience was definitely that traditional style of parenting. So kids are generally, loved, but kind of seen and not heard. Like, don't talk back, don't challenge the parent, don't ask silly questions, don't be rude, don't be angry, don't be upset. You shouldn't be upset about this. It's not a big deal. It was an accident. You're fine. So a
Yeah.
lot of that kind of, I want to just say, invalidating of emotions and how I felt and my experience.
Did you get the whole "I'll give you something to cry about"? That's like the
I'll give you
classic.
something to cry about.
Yeah, that's like code classic of 80s, 70s parenting. "You wanna
Oh,
cry? I'll
oh my
give
god.
you something to cry about."
Yes, and, like, "Suck it up, buttercup," and
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I didn't hear that one specifically, but my parents are from the UK, so they came out here in the '80s and had us, me and my brother and sister. So they were very much, "Everything is swept under the rug, we don't really talk about it, everything is fine." The next day, we were back to normal. So I was learning that, "Oh, okay, well, I shouldn't feel like that. That was bad, that was wrong. Put it away, and I need to be fine and okay and happy and polite and
Mhm.
yada yada." So I actually learned how to be a very good girl and I was
Stuff it
a people
down.
pleaser.
Stuff it
Oh, I
down.
stuffed it down. I
Yeah.
was so good at stuffing. And actually, maybe not a fun fact. I was going to say fun fact. I was so good at shoving it down that as I got into my younger teens, being an older kid, younger teens, and all throughout my teenage years and into my 20s, I started fainting for quote unquote no reason when I was really anxious or nervous.
Oh.
And so I
No.
I went to doctors and, specialists and things like that. And they were like, you are fit, you are healthy. Like I ate really well. I played a lot of basketball. The story goes on. And I realized in the end, really myself, when I learned about emotional intelligence, that I thought, oh my God, it's when I feel this certain level of heightened emotion that my body and my nervous system could not deal with that. It was too scary, too much, had no coping strategies for when I was nervous or anxious or worried or whatever. And so my body took me out of the situation. Like that's what fainting is. So in animals, it looks like playing dead. when there's a predator in humans, it looks like fainting or dissociating. So anyway, I was the most emotionally unintelligent person that I just had no idea about how to handle emotions. And when they got too much, I just avoided or, shoved it down.
Yeah.
And yeah, then I had kids. And so that was like,
Okay, I'm curious. How did this fainting resolve itself?
Yeah, to talk about body budget, like right there, man.
Yes. Oh my God. So I love, somewhere behind me will be a couple of Mona Della Hooks books. I
We love
all of
Mona.
So I came to realize that it was a few things. Obviously, my emotional awareness, 0. My ability to cope with strong emotions, 0. So one of the chapters in my book is like the emotionally unintelligent girl, because that was me. But also I realized that my confidence and my self-esteem and everything was really, really low. And so working, to be honest, just developing my own emotional intelligence was really the thing that now has, like a couple of months ago, I flew down to Melbourne. So I'm in Sydney. I flew down to Melbourne on my own with I didn't go with my husband. On my own, I worked out my Ubers. I got to the conference hall. I spoke at a conference in front of just over 1,000 people with a mic and mic'd up and with my slides up on the screen, and not a shred of anxiety or worry or fear. Like I had no qualms about, like, I used to think, what if I faint? What if I go up there and what if I talk and then I let everyone down and I can't even get up there? Had none of that. Like honestly, about 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I would not have even accepted. I wouldn't have even put myself out there. Now I do speak in front of a lot of people and it's fine.
Well, I am
So
so curious on how you started becoming a more emotionally intelligent person, and we're going to get into that right after this.
Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Hey guys, Bree here. I have 2 sisters. We're all within 5 years of each other, with me being the youngest at 44. Typically, when we get together, we sit there and chat about stuff like our hot flashes, or our raging mood swings, or our inability to sleep, which is making us pretty cranky. Yep, you have guessed it. We are all going through perimenopause and menopause together. And while I love doing things as a family, this is not one of them. I have to say, though, lately I haven't had as much to vent about because I'm currently getting treated for my perimenopause symptoms. And I've got to say, it's been going fabulous. If you're experiencing things like night sweats or having trouble sleeping, sudden weight loss or libido changes, moodiness, anxiety, depression, or brain fog, all of these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around perimenopause and menopause that can start as early as 40. Stop pushing through it alone. There is help and it's easier to get than you might think. MIDI Health offers virtual, no rush visits with your clinician. Plus, you get email, messaging, and phone support for anything you have going on. The best thing is MIDI accepts most insurance coverage and has affordable cash payment options too. So schedule yourself a virtual visit to discuss your symptoms and health background in depth. You'll come out of the experience feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. With specialized insurance covered care, MIDI puts relief within reach for so many women more than ever before. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Oh, hey, everybody. It's us, Blair and Molly, your old pals from Toddler Purgatory. 2 moms who are also actors, who are also creative beings, who sometimes feel stuck. And this is our new podcast, Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. What happens when your creative spark just seems to disappear? Gone. Poof. Bye. See ya. What happens when life gets in the way of your creativity instead of nourishing it? That's what happened to Molly and me. We felt like the thing that drove us creatively stopped working and impending doom had in fact impended. Totally. So we decided to do something about it. And that was steal ideas about getting unstuck from the most creative people we can find. We talk to guests about how to break through the mucky, gluey, sticky wall that can get between you and your creativity. We hear about their journeys, their successes, their challenges, and even their bougie coffee shop orders. And we're not just talking Bob Ross type paint on paper artists here, though we talk to them too. We're talking to actors, creative directors, dancers, and people who are working hard to be their best creative selves in a world that can sometimes feel real uncreative. We all have something to teach each other, so let's steal their ideas together. Join us, won't you, as we deep dive into how to unstick ourselves from the life gunk that can get in the way of our creative freedom. Pandemics, school calendars, world events, lack of sleep. Oh, get out of their life gunk. And let's get back to your best creative self. Subscribe to Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. You're not going to want to miss an episode. Unsticking It with Blair and Molly, because sometimes life sucks.
So we were talking about how you developed your own emotional intelligence. That was how the fainting stopped. So what were the steps you went through to do that?
So I needed to first not be so afraid of emotions and think that they're bad and wrong and awkward and a sign of weakness. Like if we actually start there, then I got to learn, okay, well, maybe they're okay. And maybe I can just let myself feel them. And when I felt emotions coming up, if I was frustrated at my husband, if I was angry with my kids, if I was really upset or disappointed about something that had happened, I actually started to let myself sit in that for a little bit rather than scroll on my phone or
Yeah, all of the
turn
stuff to
on
take away
Netflix.
the attention for sure.
Yeah. So I started to really learn to accept and even honor those emotions because I thought, well, if they're going to come, they're going to happen because if we have emotions, that's as much a part of being human as having a brain or an elbow,
Yeah.
better get used to them. So I did that and I started to learn, obviously, the power behind emotions and that they were telling us a message and that I could kind of leverage them. I could listen to them and I could think, oh, I should have said no to that. And I just said, yeah, of course I'll do it. I'll bake 12 cookies for the sale. I don't have time for this. So I really have had to work on my boundaries, which I sucked at,
Yes.
for so long
That's all of
because I was a
us.
people pleaser.
Yeah.
All of
I
us.
know.
Yeah.
We were all
How
people
many of
pleasers,
us?
both me and Bree, total people pleasers. Absolutely. And I love how you say emotions were telling you something because I think that's something that I learned very recently. I was today years old kind of recently when I learned that anger could be telling you something because anger was something that was seen as wrong as a girl. Like you weren't
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah,
be
we're not supposed to get
angry.
angry. We don't look pretty when we're angry.
Or you get the
Mhm.
other stereotype where you're called like a bitch because
Yeah.
you're angry, when really it's a very valid emotion. I mean, I used to work in an agency in Hollywood, and all of the male agents would curse and scream all the time. They were never called that. They were seen as tough and powerful. And women who have that sort of anger don't. So I love how you said you had to realize the emotions were telling you something.
Yeah.
Once you
Mhm.
realized they
Yeah.
were telling you something and you could use them, how did you use them? You said boundaries already, but was there a different way you used them?
Yeah, so I realized that there were a lot of things that were in my control that I just wasn't doing. I like setting boundaries, like speaking up. I had to find my voice. I'm still finding my voice. Like I can talk in front of a lot of people, but oh my gosh, if I have to talk to my husband about a really difficult, tricky issue,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Ooh, I'd rather
Something where
not to
you're like, I'm really putting myself out on the line. And if you say no, I'll be a little crushed.
Yeah,
So I'm kind of
yeah.
nervous about saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to get really good at being vulnerable, especially to him. Like I can be super emotionally intelligent with my kids. Put me in front of my husband and we've known each other since we was 16 and I'm 37 now. So it's been a while and I've had to learn how to find my voice. It sounds so silly. Like he's a lovely guy, but I didn't want to disappoint him. I could not cope with the emotional reaction of if we had a disagreement or an argument, or if I wanted to say, I don't agree with that, or, that was just like, as you said, crushing. And so I had to learn how to find my feet and to find my self-worth and to have boundaries, to speak up when I disagreed or didn't like something or wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
So lots of things that I was like, I have to put my big girl pants on right now.
It's hard. I mean, like, I could say I felt the same way talking to my husband, and, like, I've been with him for, gosh, over 20 years now. We got together when we were 19, and I'm, like, now 42. 42. And you kinda stop counting after
All the
40.
numbers.
But, like, I learned throughout the years, and I wonder if you noticed this too about your husband. Like, my husband does not put the same emphasis on those conversations, like emotional emphasis, that I do. Whereas I'll be really worked up and think it's like such a big deal. For instance, tonight, I booked a yoga class tonight. And in the past, I would have been like, oh my gosh, like, I need to tell him that I booked this class. I need to talk to him first about booking the class. I need to make sure like he's okay that I go because like he's gonna be home with the kids. All of these things. And I learned that it's like no big deal. Big dough tonight when I booked the class, I just texted him. I'm like, booked a yoga class tonight, 7:15. And he's like, thumbs up. And I'm like, cool, that's so good. So like, do you see the same thing with your husband? Like, is one of you more emotionally attuned and one is not?
Okay, so I have a lot to say about this, but I'm going to summarize it. Initially, no, we were not on the same page at all. Like I said, my family's from the UK, so very polite and proper and conservative. His family is Portuguese.
Oh,
Okay.
so
They
they
were
are
like,
like, we just lay it all out, man. We lay it all out.
like it was intense. And so like I remember when we were would have been, late teens kind of thing, having one of our big arguments about, I don't know, who knows what. And he was like, I'm gonna walk home. I think we didn't even have our license then. I don't know. And I was like, I could not handle the sense that he was upset with me, angry with me, not happy, like things were bad. I would have just wanted the ground to swallow me up, basically. So we were very different. As I said, now I've learned to find my voice and have boundaries and speak up and things like that. Yeah. But it took me not, this is the thing I tell a lot of parents, do not like shove this in front of your partners or husbands or, face. Don't say, we need to be parenting like this. You need to be more emotionally intelligent. You shouldn't have yelled at the kids. That was too harsh. You're going to scar them. We cannot do that because what that does is like push them further away. And I'm going to say, I have so been there. I remember a conversation years ago where my husband said something like, Steph, do you even need me here? Because you've got this. Like, sounds like you've got this. And I was like, oh, crap. And I had to realize, like, there's my way. There's a beautiful quote. There's my way and there's your way. But as for the one way or the right way, it does not exist. And I was trying to get him to do it my way. And so now I've learned, and this is what I talk about a lot, is that we have to honor that our partner was not raised by the same parents we were, was not raised in the same household, in the same culture, in the same, everything. So of course they're going to react or respond differently to us. Of course they're going to be on a different page. They've had millions of little micro moments of learnings that have created their beliefs about how we deal with emotions, what they are, if they're good or bad, if we talk about them or not. So it's been a journey, but he's actually like, I've been doing this since 2019, like full time. And really, I can say we're virtually on the same page with our goals, our understanding, our ideas.
Great.
But sometimes we go about it
Yeah.
in a different way. And I do go, ooh, I wouldn't have said it like that way. But I'm like hands off. Like I can talk to you about it later if I really want to. But otherwise, I've got to let you parent. Like you're half of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that's a big thing right there. Like, if it's really bugging you 2 hours later, then you can bring it up. But a lot of times, like, do either of you guys have that? Like, I find, and Joanne already knows this, I'm a pretty, like, big emotion. So, like, I'll get really emotional about it in the moment, but then an hour or two later, I'll be like, what did we talk about?
That's like my husband, Bree. That's like Josh. He'll be like, he once told me something that I said that really hurt his feelings. And I was crushed when he told me about it. I can't even remember what it was now. But I remember just feeling crushed. I was like at tears. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I did not mean it that way. And I brought it up maybe a month later. And I'm like, I'm really thankful that you like told me that because I need to know that for the future. And he's like, I don't even remember that conversation.
Yeah. Right? Like, what?
And in the meantime, you've been, like, getting a stomach ache for a month about it. Like, it's just
It's
ugh.
so funny. It's so funny. But I love how, like, you stated, like, we both have different ways and we both parent, like, in partnerships, you parent differently. And that's totally okay. The hard thing is, and I don't know if you've run into this yet, Stephanie, with your kids, but when kids get older and they start telling you, like, I mean, I'm the more emotionally intelligent parent in our partnership. And so I'm very aware of my kids' feelings and like what they need. And my husband sometimes is not. And my kids will come to me and be like, Dad said this to me, or Dad did this to me. And it's so hard to walk that line. I mean, I'll tell you what I tell them, and I want to hear what you tell your kids, Stephanie. And we're going to do that right after this.
Hey there, I'm Debbie Reber, the founder of Tilt Parenting and the author of the book Differently Wired. The mission of Tilt is to change the way neurodivergence, whether that's having a learning disability, having ADHD, being gifted, autistic, or some combination of all of the above, is perceived and experienced so differently wired kids and the parents like us raising them can truly thrive. On the Tilt Parenting podcast, I get to talk with authors, therapists, educators, and parenting experts who are committed to this mission. I ask the questions my listeners are most curious about when it comes to supporting our kids. And in turn, my guests share strategies for challenges, out-of-the-box ideas for navigating school, best practices for therapies, tips for advocating, and so many thoughtful insights on what it really takes to help our kids grow up feeling seen and respected so they can create awesome lives for themselves. I know that raising a differently wired kid can feel overwhelming and isolating, but I promise you, you are not alone, and it can feel so much better. If you're on this parenting journey, come listen to Tilt Parenting. Together, we can shift this paradigm and show up for our exceptional kids with hope, possibility, and joy.
No one told us the truth about parenthood. Why? This is the podcast everyone needed before they had kids, because now that those little ones are here, there is a lot to unpack. I'm Rachel Shepardota, and I am your host for the podcast No One Told Us, where we tell the truth about parenting and let you in on all the stuff you really should have known about before having kids. I am the founder of Hey Sleepy Baby, but this podcast is so much more than sleep. We'll be diving into all the topics that you really care about and need to know while you do your best job raising those adorable, tiny humans. Our goal is to just make you feel less alone and less overwhelmed. There are so many things that no one tells us before becoming a parent, and I think that we should really pull back the curtain on becoming a first-time or second-time mom or dad to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll have a little education, a little fun, and a whole lot of heart that goes into each and every episode. So join me and our amazing guests each week to hear us talk about what no one told us.
Hi there, I'm Andrea Owen, self-help author with 19 translations of my books, global keynote speaker, and life coach. My podcast, Make Some Noise, has been serving up self-help in a simple-to-digest way for the last decade. The topics brought in each episode are practical and easy to implement around topics such as working through fears that keep you stuck, different modalities of therapy, managing your negative self-talk, and more. We bring you guest experts, solo episodes, and I even coach listeners on the air around relatable struggles. I also do my best to weave my sense of humor into some heavy topics because, let's face it, life can be pretty hard, and it's so much better when we can have some fun while walking through our challenges. Whether you're seasoned in personal development or just starting out, Make Some Noise podcast will help you become the best version of yourself, the person you're proud of when you look in the mirror and show up in your life. Simply search Make Some Noise with Andrea Owen wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Before the break, we were talking about what to say to kids when they approach you about your parenting style being different than your partner's. And it's like critical. It's like they're being critical of it. No, yeah. Like you've seen it, right, Bree?
Yeah, it
Especially
puts you
being
in that
co-parenting.
spot where you're like, oh yeah, right? So you guys are, it was funny. I was going to interject the whole like, how long you guys have known your partners. My husband and I have been married for 3 years now. So he's my second husband. We've known each other longer than that, but and it gets complicated. But the point is that there's plenty of times where you're stuck in the middle going like, "Oh crap. I feel like if I don't how do I say this? If I'm not on my kid's side, then they feel like I'm leaving them out and vulnerable. But then if I go over to my husband and I'm critical about how he handled it, then I'm not honoring his way of doing it. And then I'm also the naggy person that's coming in saying, like, you shouldn't have done it that way. Like, and I'll run through all those scenarios. It's like that scene from The Matrix with all the screens of all the possible things that could happen. I go through all of it in
Yeah.
like 5 seconds, and I
Yeah.
decide that I'm screwed no matter which way I go, so then I faint. No, I'm joking.
And if I know.
I see what you did there.
What do you do, Stephanie, in that situation?
Yeah, it is hard. And the thing that I try to remember is to be impartial and to honor my kids' emotions and their experience. So their perception, this is something I say a lot, their perception, someone else's emotions or experience is just as true for them as mine are for me. So I cannot argue with my kids saying, Dad was mean. He said I can't play on the computer. Like I have to honor that that's real for them. So I validate that and I empathize with that. I'm like, you know what? That must be so hard to feel like you can't and that dad's being really mean. Like I can do that and yet remain impartial and not step over that line and be like, you know what? He's been really mean. I'm going to go talk to him because that's out of line. Dad should not have said that.
Right? Yeah.
And then I say, but you know what? I wonder if dad made that comment because, or we have noticed that you were on it for a few hours today. Or, so I'm trying to, as you said, Brie, like it's you're like walking that tightrope line.
It is walking that
to
tightrope.
not just, because sometimes you'll be like, yeah, that was really mean. Oh my God.
Right
Like,
in
why
your
did you do
head,
that?
you're just like, oh.
It's like somebody's on his period. No.
There you go. It's that time of the month for dad.
Time
It's
of the month
okay.
for dad.
Go. So yes, it is difficult. And I think, did you say, Brie, like, oh, either way, we're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Like there's an element of, you know what, we're not going to be able to raise our kids perfectly, emotionally intelligently. We're not going to not flip our lid ever. We're humans and we're going to be imperfect. We're going to raise our voice. We're going to get triggered and things like that. And I actually think that's, as long as we're not doing that 24/7 and scarring our kids, we can show and model to our kids, you know what? I am not perfect and I flip my lid and I lose my cool and I said something yesterday at lunch and I didn't want to, let's redo that. I'm sorry, honey. Like we can show them, yeah, you're going to stuff up. No, you don't have to beat yourselves up. And it's never too late to repair and do like a redo and say, you know what? Like, can we do that again? I didn't mean to yell. So I think that takes the pressure off kids too, so that when they mess up or they blow up or erupt, then they're not going to beat themselves up later.
Exactly. I pushed dad into the fire, like in a good way, in a really good way. Because it's worked. So I do what you do, Stephanie.
It works in yours.
I empathize. I say everything, and I'm like, have you talked to dad about this? That you're feeling this way? And a lot of times they have not. They're scared to bring it up and everything. And I'm like, okay, well that's okay. If you're not comfortable with it, that's okay. And then I go talk to my husband, but I don't criticize him in any way. I'm just like, hey, like so-and-so's upset here. You may just want to go check in and see what's going on. And then they get their relationship and they get to repair that based on, he sometimes needs to be cued that people are upset. He's very stoic. It's like the engineer mindset. And so I found that helps in our house.
Awesome. I like that. I think it's good to model that to the kids. It's good to give the kids the kind of plant those seeds. Have you talked to dad? Or do you want to say this? Or what would you say? Or, do you want me to come with you? Sometimes I've gone with my kids because they are upset. Dad's been mean. And I go and talk to them and I say, come on, I'll come with you. Like to expect a 5 or 10-year-old, like a very physically smaller person, mentally, like cognitively, they're not as developed. Like there's all these things against the kids. I'm like, yes, I will come with you until you're at the point where you're like, okay, we've done it that many times and most of the time dad listens and it goes okay. I can do it on my own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a hard thing to wrap your brain around though, because they're so comfortable telling you everything that you've done wrong to hurt them and upset them. Everything. And they will not tell their dad what
they're just like, it's the thing about how kids have that emotionally safe person in their life. Normally it's a parent and normally it's edible, but that's the one that we see the whole gamut of emotions with, because they're like, dude, I could completely melt down and act like a fool, and this person, aka mom, a lot of the times will still love me, will still be there, will not like say negative things, but it does take a toll on us because of that, we hear it all.
Mm-hmm.
We hear it all. Like we were talking about how we have teens, and I went through like a really tough phase with my daughter, probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where I just felt like every day she was pushing that boundary of, you said you'd love me no matter what. You said you'd love me no matter what. So we're just going to push and say mean things and do mean things and see if you're still going to be here when I'm done. And yeah,
It's
it's exhausting.
it
Wow.
is exhausting.
It takes it. I think, you know what? When we feel like, whoa, like this is a lot for us to handle. Number one, Kristen Neff's work around self-compassion is incredible. You- I'm, sh-
We've had her on
I'm
the
like, you guys
podcast.
want to,
Yes, we have. She was amazing.
Agree. Yeah, she is great. Like fierce. It was it like fiercely love yourself fiercely or
Yeah. Now I can't remember the name of the book. Fierce self-compassion, and it was a
there we
follow-up
go.
to self-compassion. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually
yeah,
built into our program,
work.
into balance, about the acknowledge you're in pain and then have the common humanity and then give yourself that comfort
But yeah,
as well.
Mm.
Kristen
help.
Neff, that compassion work, it's amazing.
It's a
Yeah, that one piece you said, Joanne, the common humanity, that's what gets me through. Like conversations like this, us three have had the same kind of experiences, and we have different kids, different ages. We're on different sides of the world.
Yeah.
And oh my God, you guys get this too. You go through it too.
Yeah.
It's not just me. Like that sense is just like, oh, I'm not doing it all wrong.
It's so nice.
We're all getting it. And those emotions, they wear you down too. Like sometimes I'll be like, you know what? I haven't had to do much physical stuff today, but all the emotions have been totally pushed upon me that you just feel at the end of the day, you're like, and I'm done and I need to retreat, else I'm going to blow up.
You know why? Because emotions, if we think about even just the word emotions, they're energy in motion, like emotions, right? So it can drain your energy. When we get those spikes of emotion, when we get heightened, we get emotionally hijacked, so to speak, angry, frustrated, or grief, or, disappointment. What happens usually is we have a flood, like every cell in our body is flooded with like cortisol, adrenaline, like we have this full physiological reaction. So yeah, we could have done like nothing physical, and yet we've had this big thing happen, like grandma's in hospital, or I've just been fired, or my husband has said we need to talk. And,
That's a horrible
like
phrase.
those things, oh, like they're emotionally draining. So this is why when we dial up our emotional intelligence and we honor our emotions and we actually take steps to help ourselves regulate rather than just pushing on, well, I'll get to that later. Okay, I'm going to scroll on my phone. That's just like kind of, trying to like fix the surface level. Like, it's not going, okay, I think I need to clear the next hour or my afternoon because I need to deal with this. Like emotionally, I don't have the brain space. If I just push through, I'm going to blow up at the next person that calls me, so I see emotional intelligence as being smart with your emotions when a lot of us are not. And we were not raised that way. So
No.
it takes
It
learning.
does take learning and it takes a lot of self-compassion throughout the whole process because learning to regulate your emotions is a very complex thing with a lot of different like roots and sources and things that you dig up along the way about why
Yep.
you act the way you do. It's intense.
Yes. Yeah. It's a lot of psychology behind it, which I kind of
I love
love. I'm a
it.
bit nerdy like that.
I am
But yeah.
nerdy as well. I'm right there with you. Stephanie, what are you looking forward to right now?
Oh, you know what? This week has been a really busy week. So I'm looking forward to the weekend where I have a friend's birthday celebration. So that's a small thing, but I think I'm looking forward to, I've got a few things coming up where I'm getting to speak about this exact stuff face to face. Like I do a lot of stuff online, but face to face speaking to people about this. And I just think, oh my God, like you never quite know whose lives you're going to change with a conversation. Like even this one, someone might hear it and go, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Thank God. And so that's really exciting.
That is exciting. Well, it's been wonderful talking with you and chatting with you. And this has just been simply delightful. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys. I've absolutely loved it.
And we'll talk to you soon. So I'm trying to figure out a gift for my husband. And right now, as we're recording this brief, Father's Day is coming up, and I don't want to lapse on Father's Day. And so as I was scrolling Instagram, there was like this ad for Make Me Royal. And I was like, I'm going to make him a like king of the Vikings. And it was basically putting his face, you send in a picture. So putting his face on this Viking dude with like fur pelts hanging over him and like standing
Okay,
there in the
that's
battle.
hilarious because I know your husband and seeing his
Yes.
face on like a Viking sounds hilarious.
But he's so into the Vikings. Like he's part
Yeah.
Norwegian. And so Vikings are that. But then I found that I could make a family photo look like The Simpsons. And he's like very into The
Ooh,
Simpsons. And
I
so I'm like,
remember that.
I think I'm gonna do that. And I sent it to my daughter and she sends me these crying, bawling faces. And she's like, sure. I'm like, are those sad cries? She's like, no, that emoji means like what? It's a confusing. And I'm like,
Okay,
I need
you
to
know what?
learn.
Kids these days, they
Yeah.
have taken over our emojis, and I'm not a happy camper.
No.
I am not happy because you know what? It was our generation that made those damn emojis. Like, you can't take something I made and then change it. It doesn't work that way. Now, granted, I know I didn't like Brie didn't literally make the emojis, but it was our generation, and I don't like the fact that they're changing stuff up on us. You
Well,
also can't tell me that the way I text is wrong because
yeah,
we
no.
started texting. I
Oh,
had
yeah,
a
no.
pager.
They're texting in all capital letters. And I'm like, why are you yelling at them? And they're like, this isn't yelling. This is just how you text. I'm like,
Yeah, but you
how
put a
you
period.
text? How
But
you
you put a
text?
period on your text, and all of a sudden they come back to you and say, "Why are you yelling?" And you're like, "What?
What?
How is grammar yelling?" Like,
Yeah.
I don't.
Grammar's considered yelling. I think it's like how our parents like write full on letters to us in text. And they're like, hi, Joanne, comma. And then it's like paragraphs and paragraphs. I think that may be what we're doing to our kids and we
Okay,
don't realize it.
but I will die on this hill, man, that our generation created this and that they need to bow a little.
They need to bow a little.
They need to back off a little bit and not be changing up all the stuff that we created. Sorry. Like an
Have you been
eggplant is an
told?
eggplant is an eggplant.
Yeah.
A crying face is a crying face. It doesn't mean something different. If you want the surprise face, it's the whoa face. I mean, I know people can't see me on podcasts, but I know you know what face I'm making.
An eggplant. You know what an eggplant is. It's not an
Yes, it is.
eggplant.
Yes, I know what an
Okay.
eggplant is. But I do believe I read recently that an eggplant doesn't necessarily mean an eggplant anymore.
Really?
So I'm pretty sure I read that, but I'll have to look it up. Like, I'll have to fact check in this
That it
exact
doesn't mean.
moment.
Okay. Well, we could use factually correct terms. I mean, that an eggplant doesn't mean a penis anymore. Is that what you've been
Okay,
reading?
there you go.
Yes. Like, I don't know. Like, I haven't heard that one. I've been told, though, that my definition of preppy is wrong. Have you been told that?
Really?
Oh, yeah. I'm like, well, preppy is somebody who's like, goes to a prep school and wears plaid uniforms. And no, mom, that's not what preppy means. And honestly, like, I didn't even listen to what preppy means. I stopped listening when she said, no, mom, that's not what preppy means. Because we started preppy.
Yes, exactly. That is us. So whatever. Whatever.
Whatever. A loser. No.
Yeah. Yeah, big L. Anyway, no. That's back to our childhood. So I loved chatting with Stephanie, and I think we found our bestie in Australia. I think that, like, if you're over near her at all on your vacation, like, which by the time this airs, you will have just gotten back from out there. Because you're
Yeah,
not
I
going to
was
Australia
looking.
necessarily, going to New Zealand, right?
New Zealand, yeah, but stopping in Australia
next
for 2
door.
days. Yeah, it's
Door.
a 4-hour flight. 4-hour flight from Sydney to Wellington. No, we're not leaving Wellington. I always forget what Christtown, I think.
Is it
Christtown.
really?
Yeah, it's 4 hours. And like
Okay.
Australia is huge.
That I know.
Huge.
Yes.
So like I was surprised that New Zealand and Australia were that far away. But yeah, they're that far away. And I was looking, she lives on the outskirts of Sydney, and we're gonna be pretty much in the middle of Sydney. So
Well, I still
yeah.
think Stephanie is our new Australian bestie.
Yes, she was delightful to talk to. I
Yes.
very much enjoyed it and just totally on the same page with so many things. And her summit's coming up, and we have a link for you in the show notes to go and get your free ticket to that.
Yep, to her online summit. So if you're
Yeah.
listening to this and you're like, but I'm in the US or Canada, you can still go, people. It is
Mhm.
online and it's fantabulous. And there won't be
And
any fainting goats.
there
No
won't be any
fainting
fainting
goats
goats.
at
No.
that conference. You're
No.
like, Brie, let the fainting goats go.
And until next time, remember, the best mom is a happy mom. Take care of you. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.